And good evening, because we have quite a few different time zones on this call. So thank you for joining us. My name is Alan Joel. I'm your CORFAC member in Atlanta. We share Atlanta with King Industrial. And we are excited about having our investment sales call. Typically, we do this about once every month, maybe every 60 days or so. Today's basically we have two parts of today's meeting, which is the first is we're going to discuss auctions, and two of our members have experience in listings, buying in auctions, and I thought that would be a good kind of a segment to get into for us as investment salespeople. The second is we're going to talk about the haves and wants. So we have about 14 or 15 or so properties. I would ask that as you unmute yourself to talk about your property, please keep it to 2 minutes of property so we can get done in an hour. The goal here is to be done in 1 hour. If you have questions during the conversations that we're having, please type them in. Obviously, if you have a question, more details on a haves and wants, reach out to the individual broker outside of this call and make a deal. So I want to thank our two guests, or not guests, but there are two folks that are talking here. Rick Hoovervost of our Friest in Amsterdam. I guess it's probably around 6 o'clock there now, Rick, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well,
6
good
o'clock.
evening. And I want to thank Greg Ellis with Patterson Woods for joining us. So we're going to get into this pretty quickly. Just briefly, let's talk about Rick. Rick is, he started off in residential real estate and decided that after a couple of years that was commercial was the way to go. I think he started with Friest in 2010, became manager of the brokerage for Friest, and he is a registered CRE valuer, and he has a master's degree in real estate. Rick is 47 years old, has a wife and 2 children, lives near the North Sea coast. Greg Ellis is the current sales manager for Patterson Woods, Wilmington. And Greg has been with Patterson Woods since 2005. And he's been, I guess, corporate real estate, and I guess with National Credit Card Bank. Didn't know that, Greg. That's something I didn't know. Greg is a CCIM. He's had it since 2010, and he's also a founding partner with Rockford Capital Partners, which is obviously his experience with buying off the auction. So that's we're excited about having him talk about that group and how they deal with the auctions. So if you would be so kind, I think everybody has figured this out by now after 1 year to mute yourself, except for our speakers. And I will now hand it over to them, and they will now, Greg and Rick. So the first question is just, Rick, I'll start with you. You know, tell us the sales that you've done. What have you done, and kind of give us a little background on that.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. A couple of years ago, we did the auction of a nationwide spread distressed portfolio of Sintrus Achmea. That's a large investment fund in the Netherlands. Those were all commercial properties. Some were very current and some were not so good. So when we started this portfolio, we first tried to sell it in one purchase, but that was not possible. It was too much spread around the country. So we managed to sell the best ones privately, but the difficult properties, the last ones, they had to be sold by auction. And right after the auction, all properties were successfully sold. We also bought some separate properties from the Amsterdam Auction. That's, I think, one of the oldest real estate auctions in the world. So it's common use in Amsterdam to buy and sell on the auction because the entire group of buyers will be there, and we'll see what is happening there. So I think that's in a nutshell.
Great. Greg, give us a little background on your experience with it.
Sure. I've been involved in, I was trying to count it up, but I couldn't count it up because I kept thinking of new ones that I've been involved in. I've been involved in definitely more than a dozen auctions, have been involved in live, in-person, real-life auctions. I've been involved in several electronic online platforms as both the buyer's rep, the seller's rep, the listing agent, and the actual buyer bidder. We won, there's at least 3 of them that I can think of that we won online. We closed on 2 of those. Actually, there's probably another one that we didn't close on as well. But I've done kind of every side of it, from small. We used to have a local broker here who loved to do live in-person auctions at the property. And I was involved in several auctions with him, mostly as the buyer's rep. I have a client slash occasional business partner, one of my partners in Rockford, who just loves auctions, loves to buy things at auction. So we've bid on, I'm constantly watching, and we're bidding on auctions all the time, just because he just loves the opportunity. And he sold properties at auction too. So a little bit of everything. Any questions, let me know.
So tell us, who are the best auctioneers? Who are your top 3 for, we'll start with Greg and then go to Rick.
So right now, I think the best online platforms, 10X is the biggest, most popular. It used to be part of auction.com. They split off the commercial into 10X. I'm sure everybody gets their emails. They used to get their big fancy marketing books. Unfortunately, they were bought by CoStar recently. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. Their business model hasn't been very successful for them. They've been losing money forever. They were owned by a lot of the special servicers or pieces of special servicers and some private equity funds. So after the Great Recession, they had tons of properties coming out of CMBS and stuff like that. And it was a great time and opportunity to buy. The newest one, well, there's Real Capital Marketplace, RCM, that has been doing auctions for a little bit. And they've been okay. I haven't actually transacted on that platform. But I just listened to Michael Griffin's webinar the other day on RCM Lightbox. They're sort of branding the auction thing. And if you're going to list an auction, I think you should definitely talk to both of those platforms. The Lightbox platform is really personalized, and it really looks like your company is hosting the auction, which I think could be really cool. I don't.
And Lightbox is part of RCM, Real Market Capital.
It is now, yes. Yeah, there seems to be some mergers going on with Client Look and Lightbox and RCM. So they're trying to private label Lightbox for the brokers. So I think there's a lot of possibility there. So those are actually the 2. And then, you could look for local or regional auctioneers in the Mid-Atlantic region. Transon plays around with some lower price stuff, but been involved in a few of their auctions. So those are my recommendations.
Rick, do you have anybody in the European side that we haven't talked about?
Well, I don't know any pan-European platforms that are successful. I think maybe because of the different languages. In the Netherlands, we have a large platform called BOG Auctions, and also the original Amsterdam Auction used to be a real life auction, and nowadays it's also an online platform and used across the Netherlands, but it's just for the Netherlands, not all in Europe.
Okay. So Rick, yeah.
Sorry, before that, real quick, the other auction platform that I would just touch on real quickly for people to keep in mind is their local, whether it's the county or whatever their local jurisdiction is that handles foreclosures and sheriffs, what we call sheriff sales. That's a live auction that takes place every, I think it's the second Tuesday of the month. here in downtown Wilmington. Great thing to look into, sheriff's sale, tax auctions. So keep that in mind as well.
Good. So I was going to ask Rick, give us some, what do you watch out for when you're either representing buyer or seller on an auction? What do you typically, what do you look for?
Well, when we represent the buyer, first of all, the bid has to be unconditional. So we have to be sure that all research and finance arrangements, they have to be finished at the time of the auction. There's no time afterwards. Also, eviction can be a problem, especially with foreclosures. Those are, I think, the main issues for buyers. And for the sellers, when it's not a foreclosure, then the timing is essential because the seller has just one opportunity to market the property correctly. So the preparation must be very thorough and very complete. And also all marketing has to be very thorough and complete. I think that's essential for a successful sale.
Greg, you have to add to that?
No, I just elaborate. Due diligence is king. In the auction as a buyer, you've got to do all your due diligence, every aspect: title, legal, zoning, tenancy, late payments, standing judgments, everything, physical. You don't get a second crack at it, or you're probably going to lose your deposit if they made you put a deposit up front. And then on the seller's part, again, to elaborate on what Rick said, the biggest thing is, again, get all your due diligence done, all your studies done, publish them, get your marketing correct, accurate. You can't be answering questions afterwards of, clarify this on the rent roll, or what exactly is the deal with the zoning or that tenant. You've got to have every question, every possible question answerable upfront, because otherwise buyers will either put the unknown is worse than the known. They're going to put a bigger discount on an unknown than no matter what the known is, no matter how bad the known is. They will put a factor of 2 on an unknown. So you got to just lay it all out there as thoroughly as possible.
I agree. Yeah.
So if you're a buyer, what are you looking at as far as costs before you even put down a deposit and buy a property? I mean, it sounds like you're going to have to spend several $1,000s just to see if you even want the property, to bid on it. I'll go with Rick first.
Most of the time the seller has done his homework and proper vendor due diligence upfront, so that will cut the cost for the buyer, but he has to do some research. I think that's very important upfront.
I think, Alan, it's more time than money. It's auctions for buyers are great when they have a good due diligence team and they can afford to go in depth on a lot of different properties, knowing they're not going to get them all. They can't be afraid of wasting time on deals. There's not a lot of costs other than putting up the deposit money. And again, it depends on the platform as to what sort of deposit you actually need. But it's really time invested. It's you're hardly ever buying reports or paying vendors to look at stuff. Now, if you're buying across the country, you might have airplane tickets and stuff like that. But it's more time invested than actual dollars upfront. In terms of whether auctions are a good deal for the buyer, I absolutely believe there is and needs to be an auction discount versus a general market price. My client partner, one of the reasons he loves to buy at auction is because he thinks they're usually terribly marketed. So he can get a discount and then apply a normal full-blown marketing process to a property and therefore collect just the premium delta. Auctions typically are all cash, or as Rick said, you've got to have your financing lined up. I mean, either way, you've got to have the cash lined up. That knocks a lot of buyers out of the pool. So there are people who just can't or won't buy at auction. So again, there's sort of an automatic discount. We bought a property in South Carolina, small 50,000-foot office building, and flipped it out 30 days later to an owner occupant who just wasn't capable of buying it at auction. So we made a really good profit on the property just with the delta of the auction discount.
So, Rick, what do you look at as far as costs on the buyer side, typically on a sale? I know there's a buyer's premium. What does that typically run?
The buyer at an auction, he gets a lot of extra costs. Besides the price, of course, the transfer tax is still applicable. He has to pay for the notary in the Netherlands. That's also an obligation. Also the costs of the cadastral fee, eviction if necessary. And sometimes overdue service costs or ground rent. If it's overdue by the seller or the occupant, then the buyer has to pay for that as well. It could be even more. Of course, the premium for the betting. So those costs really have to be taken into account by the buyer before he makes his bid.
Does that typically run around 10 to 15%?
Yeah, sometimes up to 20, I think. Depends on the case, of course, but and also on the size of the property.
Right. Greg, you seeing that too?
I've not seen premiums that high. For smaller live auctions, it could be as high as 10%. Generally, the 10X platform, and I think RCM's the same, it's usually 5%. And there's a sliding scale that it actually can drop as it goes higher. Some of that depends on whether there's a co-op fee for the buyer broker. That's often paid for out of the buyer premium or tacked onto the buyer premium. I would emphasize again what Rick said. Typically online on 10X, the contract is online ahead of time, so you can see it. Oftentimes we find that more of the transfer costs or transaction costs that are either split 50-50 or are sometimes paid for by the seller are mostly shifted over to the buyer side. So transfer taxes might be 100% buyer instead of a normal 50-50 buyer-seller split. So you definitely have to watch out for that. The flip side of that, though, I would say is your due diligence costs are probably less because you don't have to go out and buy property condition reports or environmental assessments or anything like that because they've already been done and been provided to you. You may have more attorney's fees, if there's something in the closing, but you don't have attorney's fees on the contract because the contract's already set. You don't get to negotiate that or get that reviewed or changed out. And the buyer's premium is always, at least on the platforms I like it, is always very prominently disclosed. I mean, it's not a hidden fee. The contractual closing cost fees sometimes are a little more hidden in the contract, so you got to go look at that. But I don't think the closing costs overall are usually, out of line with normal closing costs, other than the buyer's premium, if they charge that. And I would point out just one thing. The platforms, 10X, Real Capital, they don't typically charge the seller anything. They will sometimes they'll charge a fee commission, 1-2%. Sometimes they won't charge anything. All their money is made off the buyer's premium. And they oftentimes will pay for environmental assessments, property condition reports, tons and tons of marketing. They'll pay for all of that up front, and the seller will pay nothing unless there's a fee, unless the property actually closes. So it can be a pretty good opportunity to have a really amazing marketing effort without money out of the seller's pocket. I don't know if it's
So that
different.
brings up a good question though on how often do you find sellers basically pull the deal out and say I didn't get the price I wanted, I'm not gonna sell.
It happens a lot on 10X. I follow pretty much all the office transactions from Pennsylvania down to Florida, and lots of times I can tell that the auction went off either with no bidders at all or without the reserve being met. So it's amazing in their business model how much risk they put up front and how many times deals don't close. Now it's possible that, I've seen auctions close afterwards. If there are one or two bidders and they don't get what they want at the auction, the 10X and the brokers will try and recircle with the buyers and try and make a sale after the fact. So that you can't see by watching the platform. But yeah, there are a lot of times where the properties don't sell on 10X that I've seen.
Rick, has that been your experience as well?
Well, in my opinion, the seller has two risks. First of all, is the fee he has to pay in the Netherlands for withdrawing the offer, and I think it's about 1,500 euros. But also, when the property has been in an auction and it didn't sell, then it will be difficult to sell at a good price afterwards because everybody has seen it and he hasn't got a good chance the first year, maybe 2 years to get a good price. So those are the risks for the sellers, but we also see that some people try to sell their property and withdraw.
So if you gentlemen try to circumvent the auction process and either try and negotiate beforehand, and then maybe you mentioned afterwards as well, but how does that work typically, or do most sellers just say, I'm waiting for the sale to see the auction to see what happens?
Rick?
Well, yeah. In most auctions, it is possible to negotiate before the auction, and I think maybe 60-70% never makes the auction, so it will be sold beforehand. Because people still wants to have an exclusive deal, and they don't prefer to wait.
They still pay all the fees that they were
Yeah.
supposed to pay. It's just they're just not going to auction.
Yeah, correct.
Greg, what's your experience been?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on why it's being sold. I mean, if it's a short sale or a lender sale, then yeah, lenders absolutely can work with people. We found in most of the CMBS stuff and the special servicer stuff that was sold, their protocols didn't allow them to try and sell it outside of the auction. They needed auction as proof of highest and best offer. So they just flat out refused or weren't permitted to do that. We definitely have bought stuff after the auction if we've been the number 2 bidder and the number 1 bidder couldn't perform. Or if we were the number 1 bidder but never met the reserve. So after the auction, people are highly motivated and they'll try and make it work. Before the auction, it really depends on the platform and who's selling it as to whether they'll choose to do that or not.
So that's a good question. Brings into my next question, Greg. If you're a buyer and you can't close, what happens? I mean, what happens in that situation? Obviously, do you lose? What do you lose your deposit? Is that how that works? And
yeah,
do you ever get it back?
Yes. In theory, in order to bid on 10X, you have to post a deposit. In practice, we found that there are many bidders that get in there that don't post the deposit or don't post enough of a deposit. And 10X has let the deposits go back to the buyer, or back to the bidders, even though they failed at auction. But I've also seen where the seller made the platform sue, and I think even threatened to sue the platform for not collecting the proper deposit up front, and they've actually gotten the money eventually. But the risk to that is, like any time you get involved in a deposit entanglement, it may put a cloud on the property and you may not be free to sell it during that period. So you always have to choose, is it worth holding out for the deposit, or you just want to let that go so you're free to sell?
Rick, your experience there?
Yeah, well, I think I agree on all of it, because there might be a possibility when you are the highest bidder to sell it again to the number 2 at the auction, and especially with live auctions, it's a lot. Usually works on online platforms, because you don't know who the other bidders are. So I think that's a risk when you have to pay the deposit.
So last question before we go on to our haves and wants. Yeah, if I have a local property, how how effective are these auctions? And I mean, obviously you're having to sell it at a discount, but is it worth it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the number one reason that somebody sells at auction is certainty, is they have a time deadline by which they have to sell regardless of price. Obviously, if they're putting reserves on it or whatever, that may not be 100% true, but the vast majority of time is somebody who has to sell. Their only goal is to get the highest market price at that time frame, not holding out 6 months for a higher price or whatever. So, an auction can work for any property. We had, like I said, we had a broker here who did lots and lots of smaller local stuff. The online platforms are actually really good for bringing in regional buyers. But if you have if your locality is large enough to have enough people with cash that can afford to buy, then there will be somebody who will buy. There's always somebody opportunistic out there that's going to buy and pocket the discount, the auction discount. So,
Rick, what's your experience been on the local versus?
Well, I think it might be good, especially for the local properties, because with the larger assets or portfolios, the seller used to prefer a private tender rather than a public auction, because he wants to have an exclusive deal and buyer some time to do a proper due diligence investigation. And with smaller properties and more local properties, the risks are not that big. And I think that's really interesting for private people to buy interesting property on the market. So yeah, I think it's very good for smaller properties.
So one last question I got up there. If you're a local buyer, if you will, how would you secure your cash? In other words, you obviously have to have cash up front. How would you go to the bank and get them to commit, or how do you, or just have to find enough partners to have the cash in the bank?
Yeah, both is possible. I think you have to have the required amount of equity, and also it helps to have a backup of a bank. And in the Netherlands, they are willing to have a look at auction property. But well, it depends also on the LTV, of course.
Yeah, I mean, 10X and RCM, they've got debt capital market support. So sometimes there's financing, if it's a big enough property that really needs financing in order to sell at a good price, they will work to have that prepared, and have that opportunity there. But, ultimately having all the cash in the bank one way or another is the key to success.
Great.
You don't have to depend on debt. You're in a stronger position.
Well, this is great. I'm sure if anybody has any other questions, they may reach out to you directly, but this has been very informative. I've never done anything through an auction, but I know that it's certainly, especially with the 10X situation in CoStar, it's definitely something that we as investment brokers or buyers, sellers, whatever, we need to be familiar with and start getting comfortable with. So, all right, on to our next phase, or haves and wants. I think, Ed, you're up first. Again, I would ask that you would try to keep this within 2 minutes so we can kind of move on. One of the benefits, if you can, is to tell us why this property is special and what makes it special, so that, you know, and then we go from there. Thank you, Ed.
Hi, well, I'll be quick. This property we've had listed for a while, and it has 3 major things. First of all, it's a marina. In the San Francisco Bay Area, they are closing marinas as they return to various areas to marshland. So this is on the north shore of Contra Costa County, and it's a positive cash flow. Its second value is, if you look to the north, you see some vacant land. Just north of that, there is a new North Point development of 2.1 million industrial square feet. And Amazon has leased 160,000 and are about to take another 200,000. And then that vacant land is also a commercial development opportunity. So that's that. Any questions, give me a call. Next slide. This is an office building that Matt and my partner Sonny have listed. It's next to Sun Valley Mall in Concord on a corner of Main and Main, Contra Costa and Willow Pass Boulevard. It's 5 million and it's zoned medical. And in this side of this particular city, it's a rare medical listing. So medical building for sale. Next slide.
And this one's about, well, before we go, I want to just, on this one, this is a new one for us. It's 79% leased, and what kind of rental rates and what are we looking at here? You said value add, so I guess where do you value add in here?
Okay, so what we're over time converting the office tenant suites into medical, so that's the value add. Medical can get as high as $350 a foot. There is a tenant improvement allowance for that kind of medical use. Normally, this building would lease at around $225 to $250 full service. So it's medical is the enhancement on this. It is also on a ground lease with Taubman, now Simon Malls, because there's a regional mall right next to this.
And this is in Walnut Creek, which is where is that location wise as far as your area?
Okay, so it's actually Concord, which is 8 miles north of Walnut Creek, so about 30 miles east of San Francisco in the East Bay.
Cool.
Next. Are Ron or John on the line?
Yeah.
I'm on the line, Ed. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this property is actually in the city of Walnut Creek. It's on South Main Street, which is the major corridor and actually the southern entrance into Walnut Creek off of Interstate 680, which is a major freeway running north to south, connecting us here in the East Bay area with Silicon Valley. We've got 2 buildings separated by an on-site parking lot with 11 stalls, which is a rarity for anything in downtown Walnut Creek for retail. Primary play here would be potentially for an owner user, potentially a professional service type provider, which would be permitted at this property with a conditional use permit, versus in our core downtown, which is pedestrian retail. Professional uses are only permitted on second floor office space and not at all on the ground floor. So either owner user here or potentially value add. The tenants in the south building to the right of the picture month to month. We have a pin corner end cap retail space at the end of the north building in the far ground of the photo there. 18,000 cars a day. The north building is right at a signalized intersection. Right at the signal there is the entrance to Los Lomas High School with 2,000 students and about 100 staff, and just as many or more parents picking up their kids every single day. Directly across the street is Kaiser Hospital, one of the largest employers in the city of Walnut Creek, well north of 500 employees, and they're an essential business. So you've got a very strong labor force driving. So expected to asking price $3.895 million. kind of a COVID adjusted pricing adjustment, we could be probably in the range of the low 600 to mid 600 range. We could get our owner on board with that. So welcome any, any questions.
This building's vacant right now, or is there any are there any tenants in there?
The tenants in the south building to the right are currently month to month. They've been forced to close because of COVID. The ground floor is a fitness user and a massage user upstairs. So they've kind of been subject to the ongoing, ever-changing restrictions here in the Bay Area with that. Pan Coast Pizza has been in the property for about 5 or 6 years, just completed a major renovation, about $300,000 on their own dime. So they're in it for the long haul, and they've got a lot of tie-ins with a lot of the community programs, and especially the sports programs at Las Lomas High School right next door.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ron. And I guess up next is Bob with Telica. Bob, tell us about your office building in Fenton, Missouri. Is Bob on? Anybody from Intelica on that can talk about Bob's listing? We can come back. Next up will be Timo Volkers with Fries.
Yes, thank you, Alan.
How are you?
Some more input from the Netherlands. Timo Volkers, colleague of Rick Hogevorst, and we would like to discuss this investment opportunity in the Netherlands. This week we started with the sale of 2 offices in Hoofddorp that will be sold in one sale. Hoofddorp is convenient located it's nearby Amsterdam and next to Schiphol Airport. The offices are located between a motorway and a train station, so therefore the location is easily accessible with both public transport and car. The annual rent is around 710,000 euros, I think, which is $850,000 or something like that. And as you can see, the target price is 9,250,000 euros, which is a gross initial yield of 7.7%. I think it's good market price for these office buildings. The offices are almost 5,200 square meters in size, 140 parking places. One of the 2 offices is fully let to the Regis. Maybe you guys know it.
Timo, what is excuse us, but what is square meters, 5139 square meters equal in square foot wise? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know.
It's almost times 10.
Okay.
Times 10, about 50,000 foot. Okay, that's trying to understand. Okay.
Good. Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you, Rick.
It's fine. We're
okay. The other office is let to 5 tenants, so in total 6 tenants with a weighted average lease term of 3.75 years. So do you have any clients who may are interested? Don't hesitate to contact me or Rick. And if you are interested in investing or buying properties in the Netherlands or Europe, please contact us.
good. Thank you, Timo. I think Bob is back on, so we'll go back one to opportunity number 4. Bob, tell us about your property in Fenton, Missouri.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now.
All right, sorry, a little bit of technical difficulty on my part, I apologize, but thanks for coming back to me. Yeah, this is a unique opportunity. We call this the Intertech building. It's in a submarket called Fenton, Missouri. It's got limited competition. It's about 90% occupied right now at rates that are slightly below market. So while it is stabilized, it also offers a value add component up to it. One of the things that's pretty unique about this building is that there is a new hospital system going across the street. And what that is doing is attracting a lot of potential medical users to this this building. So yeah, we're really excited about this opportunity. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
What kind of rates are you looking at in the you know, what are you getting just in your building, and what do you think the market is?
You know, it's about $22 a foot, low 20s is what we're seeing in that marketplace. It's, you know, we see a lot of activity because there's a limited amount of product.
Okay. And you said it's probably, it could go, it might be converted back into medical, or could go medical. Is it office now mostly?
It's mostly office, but you know, it certainly could accommodate medical users as well.
Okay, good, interesting. Okay, great. If anybody has any questions for Bob, please reach out to him. Our up in opportunity number 6, Brian at TRI, you're up.
Hey guys, John Hines here. Brian got tied up at another appointment. So I'm here to present. We got, first up is Antioch, Bank of the West building. So Antioch is a bedroom community of the Bay Area, lots of commuters into the city. So what we're seeing here is a large, and this is true of all 3 properties that I'm going to be presenting today, lots of residential growth in these areas, which is just making these 3 properties just that much more valuable. So this property is on Summersville Road. Just down the road, Summersville Road, there's going to be, in Antioch, 1,800 homes have been approved to be developed out there, and they're selling as quickly as they can build, and that's how it is here in Sacramento. So this has a Bank of the West drive-through, as well as a regional pizza chain, which is Mountain Mike's. Both have been staying open and paying the rent. So on to the next one. So this property is in Brentwood, which is just down the road, just down Highway 4. We have 4 stable tenants here, Starbucks drive-through. It's located in a lifestyle center, that like an outdoor center that's high-end. As you can see here, 6.05 million. All these tenants have stayed open, paying rent. And it's pretty much the same story here. In the Brentwood, Antioch area, they're looking at 7,900 units that are going up or plan to go up, which is just going to drive huge amounts of traffic. This is right off of the freeway. So this is a great retail opportunity. And on to the next slide.
Real quick, John, Brentwood, isn't that, where is that? What big metropolitan is that near? That's near LA, isn't it?
No, so these are all near the San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, San Francisco, because there's a Brentwood, there's actually a Brentwood in LA too. So
oh, yeah.
I was getting confused. Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Yeah, so I have a third one as well. I'm not sure if, looks like we're not.
Hey, good morning. Number 8, 200 the Telegraph Avenue in Oakland. It's a triple net asset, 9 years remaining on a lease. It's a imaging firm that is primarily the tenant, 12,500 square feet. Radnet is the imaging firm. They have a 5-year renewal option. This is an interesting property since it's on campus to Sutter Hospital. Sutter has a desire to be able to relocate a lot of their tenants and their opportunities from Berkeley, because they're going to close that campus and move it on campus to the Oakland market. So this is a potential development opportunity if Radnick can be relocated. If not, it's a triple net asset. Cap rate's about 4.9%. And the seller is looking at opportunities to be able to sell this to a developer and or a triple net asset purchaser.
Sonny, how long, you think in 10 years is that a good time? Well, I guess the lease is up in 9, but would that be the time that you think that redevelopment would happen, or could that happen before the 9 years?
Well, we're actually having some conversations with Radnett, the tenant, to be able to relocate to a brand new build-to-suit. And they have not committed as of yet. It could be a commitment within the next couple months, so we would know if indeed it could be developed sooner. The ideal use, of course, is a medical office building on campus to Sutter. The second use is it's approved for 6 stories for either apartments and or condos on campus, which is a opportunity for a residential developer to be able to purchase and put up those type of units, in Oakland on campus to the hospital.
That's a good listing for somebody that wants to do medical redevelopment, but yeah, that's a good one.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, next up, well, Dan, tell us, and I'll shout out a little bit here with Dan. I think they have, Dan's closed at least one deal with a CORFAC member on this with Bamboo in Charlotte. So congratulations on that. And tell us what you're looking for. Is Dan on? I think I saw Scott, but Scott, are you on? You want to talk about Bamboo?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dan and I were able to complete a deal actually the latter part of last year in December. It was an off-market deal that I had to be selective and who I took it to. And I got to know Dan, honestly, through CORFAC as affiliation development chair. We actually went to St. Louis to visit him and just kind of hit it off and developed a personal relationship and just stayed in touch. And as I came across this local opportunity in Charlotte, because I knew he was actively looking in Charlotte, man, they were awesome buyers. That's all I can say. Dan and his whole team never retraded the deal. Had a couple of issues. They worked through it, closed on time. And actually, I've got another one that if I can get my seller reasonable, hopefully I'll do a second deal with Dan here shortly. So again, I can speak highly of him and his team. Great guys, great people.
All right, I think Alice, Dan's business partner, is on, so you can tell us, Alice, tell us a little bit more about Bamboo. We're excited to have you guys on and tell us how we can do some more business.
Thanks. We're excited to be here. We are Intellica's sister company. So Dan founded both firms. I am on the Bamboo side, which is the private equity arm. We raise money from investors and then purchase property all over the Midwest and Southeast, and then select other cities throughout the country. We love what we categorize as micro assets. We actually have a private equity fund with quite a bit of capital to spend in the micro space. We define those as purchase price under $15 million. That said, happy to look at portfolios and bigger purchases for our institutional clients. Just as an aside, we don't put anything under contract that we don't close on. We do our due diligence up front. We're happy to share our underwriting with our LOI so that everybody's on the same page on how we're getting to our offers.
And what, Alice, what's your sweet spot as far as your, property? What kind of property and occupancy? What's your sweet spot there?
So we are not scared by any type of project. Focused right now on industrial, multifamily conversions, and if we can find some great office deals, we would love those as well. Historically, we've played in everything except retail. We've done even land and ground up development. We like deals with some hair on them. We're not scared.
Alice, I think Dan had also mentioned y'all have done quite a few sale leasebacks, which is that accurate as well as another product type?
Yes. One of our institutional partners has a mandate right now to do sale leasebacks. Most of them have been industrial, triple net, sort of headquarter, single tenant. But we will look at any type of sale leaseback. Right now, we are looking at one in Chicago. That is an office sale leaseback triple net.
Great. Okay, next up is, let's see, we got Caleb at TRI again. Are you on, Caleb?
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Hey.
Cool. So I have an LP based out of South Korea, and I've got a decent relationship with them. I've worked with them in the past. So they're deploying about $100 billion into the US, and their range per deal is about a $80 million to $100 million price point. They're looking for core and core plus assets. I think we've narrowed it down to core plus. Gateway markets would be kind of the icing on the cake, but I think secondary markets are probably going to get them the best yield. They're looking at something, maybe a 5.5 leveraged return. So if you guys have anything in way of logistics, manufacturing, or any residential component, we definitely would like to look at that. The sponsor will participate in a fee up to 1%. And I'm trying to negotiate a retainer fee as well. That's usually how we've worked in the past. So if you guys have anything, please send them to me.
That's a good client. That's a real good client. Well, good luck. I'm sure that with all the industrial that we do in this organization, there's something out there for you guys.
Yeah, please.
Next up, Brian. TRI.
Yeah, John again. So this is the third of
John.
3 properties. Yeah, last one in the what can be sold in a portfolio. So these, I didn't say it earlier, they're all retail, all out just outside of the Bay Area. This one is in Tracy, California, which is just off 205, which is a major travel corridor in and out of the Bay Area in California. So this is a home goods company, great credit tenant. They have their leases up at around December 2023, and they have options to extend. So all 3 of these properties that I presented today are owned by the same ownership. They are a motivated seller, and all offers will be considered.
Okay, good. All right, next up is Jonathan in the Philippines. Welcome aboard, Jonathan. If you want to give us a two minute, tell us about yourself, because we're glad to have you on board at CORFAC. And obviously you got a property you want to talk about as well.
Yeah.
And it must be midnight at your time. What time is it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's actually around 2 a.m. here. But yeah, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, my name is John. I'm with TFA Commercial Realty. We're based in the Philippines, and yeah, I'll be happy to share with you 2 of our investment opportunities here in the Philippines. So first one is it's an office building, a 6-story office building located in the southern portion of the Philippines. So this building is ePerformac Center. It sits on a 5,000 square meter lot, having gross floor area of 11,830 square meters. And actually, it was named after its sole tenant, ePerformax. The building is PEZA certified IT park, meaning registered enterprises could avail fiscal incentives such as income tax holiday and other fiscal incentives from the government. This one is also inside a 7.6 hectare IT park, which is the Pueblo de Panay Techno Park. And the total asking price is at around 9 million plus the 12% VAT. So
I believe, John, I believe a hectare is 10 acres, I believe. Is that correct? Do you know?
Probably roughly around that size, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and actually what's good about this one is the tenant is on a long-term lease. So they signed up a 10-year lease last 2018, and they're up for an additional around 5 to 6 years left for the lease. So it's actually a good investment if we're pertaining to more on the long term. And also once the lease is expired, we can adjust the rent to make it more attractive and competitive with other areas as well.
Good. You got one more, right?
Yeah, got one more. So the next one is a six-story dormitory. Actually, it's located a short walking distance in the main CBD in the Philippines, which is Makati. So this six-story dormitory building has an average occupancy of around 85 to 90%. Half of it is corporate lease, and another half is for personal lease. And actually, it's close. It's an ideal location because it's just a short walking distance to several office buildings here in Makati. And actually, it's with what's happening right now. It's one of the stable industries that's existing right now here in the Philippines. So the asking price is at 4.4 million plus a 12% VAT.
Thank you, John. So is it Jonathan or John? What do you go by?
John. You can call me John.
Okay. So John, give us a couple of just a 2-minute about your firm, and again, welcome aboard. I know this is your first. You just joined this year. Tell us a little bit about the firm, what you guys do.
So we're a commercial realty based here in the Philippines, and actually what we do is we focus on investment deals, industrial sale. We also have our research team and our office services team. So we cater to end-to-end service to our clients, specifically to any type of industry, and also those who would seek a highest and best use study. So we also cater to that type of market as well.
Well, great. Well, we're just so next time we have this call, you do not have to dress up. You can go in your PJs if you want to get on the call. we don't care.
Yeah, that's a good advice.
Yeah. Well, thank you for getting up and telling us about yourself. I appreciate it. And I think that is it. If there's any other questions or comments, please let us know, but we are within the 1 hour time period that we promised. If you have obviously questions, so specifically on properties, please reach out to that individual broker and see if there's a possibility of a transaction. So, but if there's anything else, I'm happy to answer. If not, I hope everybody has a great day, and we look forward to talking to you. Jonathan, you might want to give a plug about next week, or Joe, during our Zoom CORFAC meeting next week. So why don't you give us 2 minutes of that and we'll be done.
Absolutely. Jonathan, you want to take this? Well, first of all, let me thank everybody for being on the call today. I'm Joe Latina from Patterson Woods Commercial Properties in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm your acting president of CORFAC International right now. Good job, Greg. My partner did a fantastic job presenting the auction today. He is very knowledgeable in that. Thank you, Greg. And John, Philippines, welcome. Thank you for participating. And as Alan mentioned, 2 a.m., man, that's dedication. We truly appreciate you being on this call and welcome. We welcome you here. So, but Jonathan, you can say your spiel, but yes, our virtual spring conference will begin next week. There'll be 3 sessions next week and 3 sessions the following week. Obviously, there's no cost to you as a CORFAC member to join these. We've got some really quality speakers and some really good programs. HQ's been working really hard putting this together for us going forward. We're going to start on Tuesday. All the calls all the sessions are at 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 Eastern Time. And we're going to kick it off Tuesday the 16th. There'll be a session on the 16th, 17th, 18th, and again on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. So I hope that everyone on this call will be on those as well. And, we're looking forward to a great conference. Jonathan? Maybe?
No, Joe, you hit it on the head. But if you show up next week, you will be very disappointed because nobody will be there. So
Oh.
it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Two weeks. It starts, as Joe said, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that week, and then the following week, the same thing. Great programming. We sent out a note yesterday to everybody about registering. You will probably get a few more of those from us. So please be there if you can. And if you can't, as Joe said, they're recorded. And I would also encourage everybody, besides thanking you very much for being on this call, you have the ability to push out any of these investment deals that you're looking for or have to the entire network. So I would encourage you to do that. If you need help doing that, send me an email, Jennifer or Christy. We can help you or show you the best way to push that out to the entire membership. Or you can specialize it to a specific group. So.
All right. Well, I hope everybody has a great day, and we will see you all at the virtual spring conference in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.